Hi, everyone. Today on the podcast, we're joined by a company that truly lives and breathes quality and has been doing it for over 15 years. And I'm talking about PlusQA. This is a Portland-based software testing powerhouse that's worked with brands like Airbnb, Dropbox, Nike, Ubisoft, and many more. What makes them stand out? They deliver 100% onshore QA services. They test on 400 plus real devices and specialize in everything from mobile and web testing to accessibility, IoT, and even mixed reality. So let's dive in and learn how they keep the digital world running smoothly, one test at a time. Today, I have with me Ryan Wilder. He's a VP of Operations and PlusQA. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction.
So Ryan, let's start with, can you tell us a bit more about your company, about PlusQA, and problems that you help solve in quality space?
Yeah, like you said, we're an onshore company, so we're based in the Pacific Northwest. Primarily, we have a main office in Portland, Oregon. And we really strive to have as much sort of real-time communication with our clients and be testing alongside the building process. Obviously, as a QA company, our overall goal is that final software quality. We started primarily as a manual testing company. About 17 years experience in the field. We've worked with products from big to small, and worked across the, really wide range of industries. We've also really expanded into accessibility in the last few years, and really become accessibility testing experts. We've partnered with the Oregon Commission for the Blind, so we've actually worked with testers that are using assistive technologies in their everyday life, and be able to kind of gain that experience and bring that into our process and provide that value to our clients. Our testing approach is that of the user. At the end of the day, whether it be new features, regression testing, accessibility, our goal is to ensure that that end user has a good experience with software. That's at the core of how we test. That's at the core of how we set up our testing. It's one of the main reasons that we have, made a device lab that in a central location like Portland, where we can test on, 400 or 500 real devices. So, it's something that a lot of companies, as they become more and more remote, they have a hard time maintaining themselves, and getting that, experience of what does my product look like on a real device, whether it's old, whether it's brand new, and has a lot of value for our clients. Um, I think also, um, clients come to us for a lot of different reasons, right? So we have some clients that are coming to us for one big release or a new feature, or they just did a major refactoring and they need that professional QA approach before it hits production. We see that happen a lot for big events like conferences or things like the Super Bowl, where they know they'll have a lot of users all at once and there's not really a second chance, to kind of make a first impression, right? So that's a big part of what we're doing. We also have companies come to us looking to improve their accessibility, from their software, whether they've done internal audits or this is the first time they've really thought about accessibility. Having someone that can kind of come in, as an accessibility expert is really valuable. I think the other, kind of group of clients that come to us are the people that are needing that full-time support. We have a large team of embedded resources that are joining their development team and able to sort of support that kind of shift left approach, which is, helping out before, features are even built, building test cases along the way, asking those questions, before they get to production that, QA is so good at asking and saying, what will the user see? What will the user experience? And I think that's, in any situation, that's our goal. We are building sort of custom teams for all of those approaches. We understand that no one development team is built the same as another, whether that be their release cadence, their approach, what their size of their team, all of that is, we can kind of build a custom team around them, which I think offers a really like cost efficient and time efficient way for our products to be tested.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of amazing things. Accessibility is such an important topic that not a lot of companies value enough, right, and focus enough. So having someone who can help the companies with accessibility would be amazing. And having the lab with the mobile devices, onshore, that's also sounds like an amazing capability. Um, And having a quality who is on shore, like it's been such a luxury in my career, right? So I feel like the companies who are using you are so kind of like lucky to have such a great support, in a similar time zone. So that's amazing. And I like to hear that you guys are also focusing on shift left and supporting organizations who would love to do more of a shift left, right? Because that's been a focus on the trends in the quality industry in the last 10 or so years. So that's great to hear. Um, you pretty much answered my next question, which was about what sets your company apart, right? So
Yeah.
anything else that you want to share? Like what makes you different from other, consulting companies or quality services companies?
Yeah, I think one additional thing is that we get to test our testers, our leads get to test a lot of projects and get exposure to a lot of processes. Um, our ability to sort of step into a company and work directly with them has given us that experience in the real world that we bring to every other project. I think being exposed to many different like dev processes and product processes, it allows us to take the good and hopefully improve, on the bad that we see and help other new clients like avoid those mistakes to say, hey, like we've seen this process before, we kind of know the road we're going down, like let's change now. um I think we're often praised for how quickly we can ramp up onto a project. That's always a big concern when you're bringing in, an outside company, like how valuable can you be and how quickly. We're providing useful bugs on day one of most projects. I think that's a surprise to a lot of clients. But over the years, that's not an accident. We've had a strong focus internally on creating systems that allow us to be extremely flexible. We understand that process is unpredictable when you're, building new features or existing features. Um, and most engineering teams that are coming to us, they're working fast and they want a QA partner that can kind of pivot quickly, with them as well. And then like I said, some clients are coming to us with no prior QA team or system. And they're kind of coming to us and expecting us to be the experts in the room. And being able to have all of that various product experience, allows us to step in and assess and say, hey, I think in your situation, like this is the best way to start. And I think we're always trying to be conscious of people's time and the investment it takes, to make QA valuable. So that's our kind of goal and the expertise I think we bring when someone is setting up a system for the first time.
That's amazing. It's amazing to hear you have a quality professionals who have experiences, wide range experiences from different companies, right? That always helps when you get someone with a broad industry experience. And I've also heard that you've been with the company for a long time, like 13 years. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you guys have a good kind of like morale for people to stick around so long, which also helps with the, experience. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, for sure. It's, again, I've been here for 13 years. Got to do a little bit of everything. I started as a tester, and I keep bringing that approach and how we structure our teams and how we structure our like kind of internal processes is important. Part of, some of that strategic ability for us to quickly be, pivot and grow is our training and focusing on the things that are important, focusing on giving products and bugs to our clients that can improve that user experience in the end, making sure that our testers kind of understand that that's our goal. It's QA is not just a checkbox, it truly is improving the user's experience and in some cases their lives, right? When you're talking about things like the health industry, financial industry, like there are some serious implications of software being high quality. And so being a part of that is really important to us.
Great, great. I always admire the people who go from tester, to like a VP, CTO, or CEO. So that's an amazing story. Congratulations on amazing growth in this company.
Thank you.
Let's talk about what the quality means to you. You talked a little bit, but what does that mean for you and your testers and your company?
Yeah, so quality is that big word, right? Like it's that umbrella that kind of puts all of us, in place, right? Like what is it that is important? It can change. Obviously what's important to some companies aren't important to others. Um, I think for us it is always starting with that user-centric approach. It's saying at the end of the day, the people that use the tool are the ones that are going to keep using it. If it's a, an e-commerce site, they're the ones that are going to buy the things and pay the bills and make it, worth building out more features and expanding that software. Obviously, like finding a way to do as thorough testing as possible, right? I talked about some of those products that come to us for one big event, like they're not going to change the date of the Super Bowl because your site isn't ready, right? So how do we get as much thorough testing in that short period of time, and really focusing on the things that are most impactful, whether that's new features in that case or even the regression testing, in accessibility testing, it's kind of scrutinizing the software and making sure it's stable, it's performant, it's user friendly, and it's working across a lot of devices. If a developer's sitting at their desk, coding and has their personal phone and that's the only thing they look at, like being able to see what it looks like on other devices, seeing, our users having the same experience or the expected experience is really important. We hope to be proactive, right? We want to find the bugs before anyone in production does, even if that means that a client or a product team decides to ship with those bugs, right? We've seen that, I'm sure, as QA professionals, that there are decisions made that not every bug is going to be fixed. We want to at least make sure that the client has the full picture before making that sometimes hard decision. Um, and then I think with our clients that we're working with over time, it's that continuous improvement. I always like to say, like, I want to look back in a year and say we're doing a better job than we were doing a year ago. And not being, comfortable with the current state and saying there's always space for us to be more efficient. There's always space for us to be able to adapt faster, to be more flexible, while still keeping high standards. Some of that's taking some calculated risks and trying new things, and some of that's, really being honest about what's working over time. And as technologies change, that we're still sticking to the same high standards that got us here.
Great. I love to hear the user-centric approach, right? Customer empathy. That's also my idea of quality. That's amazing. And how do you see the role of QA evolving in the current fast-paced, software world?
Yeah, I mean, again, in my experience, like it's forever changed. It doesn't ever feel like there's a moment where we've done QA one way and everyone does it that way, right? So obviously AI is a big part of that right now. That's the topic that you're going to hear a very tech conference or tech conversation is somehow touching AI likely. Um, so again, I think that's something obviously that we're attuned to like everyone else. Kind of where does that fit into our industry? We've seen some platforms starting to emerge that are kind of offering like end-to-end testing with AI. And I think seeing stuff like that is really interesting. And like anytime there's a major change, it kind of shifts the way that we focus on things. And it definitely will, change the way we test projects and already has. I think part of it for us is trying to be ready to adapt to those changes. Being ultra focused or specializing in one specific field isn't enough. Um, that's again one of those things that's really nice where we are getting to work with different industries and different clients who are adapting to those things at different paces. We get to see the good and the bad. um, I think that exposure is helping us kind of evaluate more quickly than other clients of what is good and what is marketing, what is useful and what is output that is just checking a box. Again, I think at the end of the day, like I said, sticking to some of those goals that we've always had of end goal user satisfaction. No matter sort of what automated or AI tool gets that software to production, I think it's the role of QA to sort of stand up and speak up for that end user. PlusQA, I think we best offer that human perspective with human testers. And so I think it's always kind of finding that balance, as things change.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned AI tools. We're seeing a lot of them pop up on the market nowadays. And we're gonna have some of them at the conference, InnovateQA conference on June 5. Load Mail, Context QA, are the companies who are the innovators in this space. And I would love, I'm very curious in 5 years who's going to be the leader in the AI test automation and how it will transform our everyday work.
Yeah.
So what are the biggest challenges you see the teams face? You guys are working with a lot of different companies, so what do you see most common challenges?
Yeah, I think the biggest trend we see with QA is when companies stop focusing on quality and they think that QA can be skipped. We see a lot of development teams sort of shifting that responsibility onto engineering, saying, as you're coding, you can be testing. Um, and I think sometimes that's cutting out that QA process, like might speed up the process, might have less questions asked, but in the end of the day, it leads to a worse user experience. And I kind of always say, like, just because something's fast doesn't make it good. And a user doesn't approach, seeing a new piece of software and ask how long it took the team to develop. They're approaching it as, does this work for me? Is this what I want? Do I like using this? Does this make me feel good? Can I purchase the thing? Whatever they're there for. Can I get answers to the questions I have? So I think also thinking about when features are coming out, if they're not working for everyone, whether that's device compatibility, whether that's an accessibility thing, or whether that's just bringing a perspective that the engineering team doesn't have, that can be a direct loss of revenue. That can be a direct loss of your user base. I'm sure we've all heard some of the like, worst case scenarios of like bad software, bad bugs go out and a huge chunk of users go away and never come back. And I think, looking away from quality is taking a big risk. Um, I think, it's an honorable approach to say, hey, we want our developers to focus on quality as well. I think that is part of the system of getting a high quality product out. But I also think that perspective of QA professionals who have those skills, has that mindset, is able to sort of ask those questions that might not have been asked, while coding that happy path of the feature, or while that engineer, did the testing from their perspective, they certainly have missed, the perspective of others. Even when we build our teams internally of QA professionals, we are looking to build teams of like people with different skills and different approaches and different backgrounds, so that even though we're testing one product at the time, they're getting that perspective of many products and many years of
Yeah.
experience.
So
So
you have diversity of thought, right? And you look at
absolutely.
it from different perspective. That is also so important. And yeah, I've seen companies skip quality and they're saying we're shifting left, no more QA, right? But I'm another kind of thing that I've seen in the industry is when the startup is, like building the product. In the beginning, they're not going to invest in the QA teams, but eventually they'll grow enough to kind of realize, like, oh, okay, I think we're ready, right? So have you seen that transition? Like, have you seen what is the size of the company or the scope of the product where the companies feel like, okay, it's time to invest in QA?
Yeah, I think it really depends, right? I think in the accessibility side, a lot of times that can be something they didn't think about initially, right? And once they sort of get a user base, they start to approach like, wait, our users have a lot of different needs. And so they might come to us and say, hey, we didn't really think about accessibility. Like, what does that look like? Like, what does testing look like? What does, how do we fix, some of these errors? And some clients, I think, regret coming to us late because there are design decisions that were made without accessibility in mind that have to sort of be remade or reconsidered. Or again, we get to the unfortunate situations where people are releasing knowing that there are accessibility, limitations with their tools. Um, I don't know if there's a specific size that I've seen. Again, I think some of it is their approach to sort of getting to market. And if speed is their number one concern, QA is one of the things that gets skipped. I think the teams that approach it from a longer term, standpoint to say we want to capture users and we want to keep users. We want users to go out and tell about our product and speak to the quality of it. Those are the people that I think are really looking for someone like us to come in and look before it ever sees production, or it gets outside of a small beta program. um, you know I I think that there are companies that hit a level of just time as well. That approach might have worked for the scale that they're at, where engineers are testing and keeping things in line, and then their regression cycles speed up, or there's a request to do monthly releases instead of quarterly releases, and all of a sudden, the engineering team is like, we don't have time for both, right? And I think that's where, a company like us can kind of step in and augment that and say, hey, there are times where you are really busy and you have agreed that quality is important. Let's, sort of be a partner in that situation. And there are times where you are, focused on that new feature, or you are, working on that go-to-market plan that, QA doesn't need to be quite as involved in, we can kind of step back and let that evolve.
I like what you mentioned about accessibility. Basically, doing accessibility early will save you money at the end, so you don't have to redesign it later, right? I think that not all of the companies realize that, and a lot of times they think that, oh, we'll just fix our, UI and just change whatever text or whatever needed later, right? Without realizing that some of these decisions are actually on a deeper level, and it will be too late to change that later, or too costly
Yeah.
to change it later.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's missed in accessibility a lot of times is the usability side of it. I think a lot of people think of it accessibility just being like ARIA labels and tags in the code. And we see some automated ally tools that can look for those things, but they're really limiting because if you were a blind user, for instance, the order in which you're given information is useful. As a sighted user, you might follow some traditional, design guides and seeing like big text and things that jump out to you first. It might not be the first thing on the page. And so as a designer, you might, design with that in mind to say, I expect everyone to sort of see this first and experience this. But as someone using a screen reader, they might, they might not see that or sort of get given that information in the same order. And so things like that, I think, are really important to kind of get that
Yeah,
human side of
yeah.
it.
Yeah, thanks for giving us the details. I'm personally have never been super involved in accessibility either. A lot of companies I worked for did not invest in that whatsoever. So thank you for doing that, and being an expert in accessibility. So we touched on AI a little bit, but can you tell me more about, like, how do you see AI changing how teams are approaching testing and quality?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think with the expansion of AI, it's raised so many ideas about like what the future might look like, right? And I think we're a little bit still in that dream phase in a lot of the QA space of it's the same thing I think happened with automation and then codeless automation, where everyone would love to have that special button where you just hit it and all your bugs are found and it only takes 10 minutes and no questions are asked, right? And I think AI is showing some space where that, they think that might happen and maybe in the future it does, but I think that, the current state of that is that there's some limitations, right? And I think for us, it is evaluating those things and saying, where is that value now? Where is that value in the future? And where are some of those things that I think we're going to look back in 5 years, 2 years, I don't know, and kind of laugh that we even tried to do those things. I think the same way when the first iPhones come out, right? It was this novelty thing, and now we hard to live in this world without a touchscreen device, and going to a restaurant isn't involved or something. So again, I think there will be things that we look back on and say, I can't believe we did without AI, and our kids or laugh at us for how old we were that we did those things manually. And then there's going to be things that truly are never going to be that magic,
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
want.
Well, Ryan, I would love to see you at the InnovateQA conference so we can talk about it, because we have a lot of presentations on this topic, and there will be a lot of people who worked on the tools, AI tools, and having the discussions about it. So we'd love to have this chat again in Seattle in June. And I wanted to ask you, you guys are supporting InnovateQA conference. What made you decide to support the conference like us?
Yeah, I think first, just like being a company founded in the Pacific Northwest and staying, in the Pacific Northwest, we were excited to hear about Innovate and being in our region. And again, I think so much of what we have relied on is that large number of tech companies coming, working with companies like us onshore and in the Pacific Northwest. So we're just happy to be part of the larger testing community. Like I said, we love getting the perspective of others, through our work with clients, but also through other QA professionals and helping us sort of build better processes and, hopefully elevating the level of QA across the industry.
Yeah, that's our goal. We want to elevate, we want to transform, and we want to define the future of quality together. So thank you so much for being a part of our community and collaborating with us on that. And I
Yeah.
have a few fun questions for you at the
Okay,
end.
great.
So what is something fun or surprising about your team that most people don't know?
Yeah, fun. I mean, I think it's, again, one of the things about having like a central office, which is a little getting more and more rare, is, we have the space to do some creative things. And so a lot of our testers are work from home, most of the time, but we do organize some events and we do like a couple times a year, we'll do like a video game competition that's built to be really friendly. Everyone has a good time, but there's always a few people that are taking it kind of serious. And I think they're secretly practicing for like weeks beforehand. And some of them even bring in their custom controllers. But it's fun because again, I think everyone still has a good time. And whether it's you're just kind of on the casual side like me and just kind of button mashing your way through the tournament, or you've really like put in the time, it's a good way for us to kind of get familiar with each other. And when we're building these custom teams, it's really nice for people to have that experience with each other and know how to work well together and know how to have fun together. Because there'll be times where, like I said, we'll be pivoting in a critical moment and in being able to, sit next to someone virtually or not is really helpful. So.
Look, team bonding is a big thing, right? Like I'm a fan of the remote work, but having the team who kind of spend time together and who are bonded and who can collaborate well together, that's huge. So kudos to you for building such a strong connections, and strong team who can support your customers. And if your company was a character in a movie, what kind of role would it play?
I always think of this as like a specific character actually. And I think of Baymax from Big Hero 6, if you're familiar. And I always think of it as like our goal is to kind of come in and assess the development team's needs and create like a custom strategy plan for meeting those needs. Sometimes that means we need to be really involved. And other times that means we need to sort of step back and wait for, that team to evolve to kind of embrace QA. Again, I think at the end of the day, our hope is that we're finding a situation and improving it, from where we started. And I think, bringing that understanding, that compassion to our internal team and our clients is, really helping to solve some of the complicated problems that do arise, while making them.
Amazing. I love it. I need to put all these characters from my interviews together in one
Oh, that
in
would be
one
fun.
slide for all of the companies
Yeah.
that I'm talking to. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any last words for our listeners?
No, just thank you for, having us. And we're really looking forward to attending the conference for the first time.
Yes, I'm super excited to meet you in Seattle on June 5. And thank you for taking the time to tell us more about PlusQA and what you guys are doing. That's amazing. So thank you so much and see you later.
All right. Thank you.